Hey everybody, it's JT from VapeStarsNetwork.com. So real quick before we get into this little build video, first of all, happy 4th of July. Everybody be safe, have fun, spend time with the family, the friends, but make sure you're being safe. So, I don't call my build videos tutorials. That's kind of... Anyway, just not my style. It's how I do builds. It's my interpretation of different type builds. But we're going to talk about the Raiju atomizer by VHO, the makers of the Helios. So it's that 4-post design, super easy to build dual coils on, or singles. This is actually the finished build that we do in the video. And I want to stress right off the bat that while I was doing this video, I tried one certain coil, tested it, and wasn't comfortable with where it came out at. So I re-wrapped. I added 2 wraps to each side. I'm not focusing on resistance in this video, and as much as I preach and encourage people to pay attention and be safe, that might seem odd. But my take on that is I can't suggest or recommend a certain resistance to you if you're watching this video and attempting a build like this. You know your stuff. You're familiar with Ohm's law. You have an ohm meter, you're able to test. Don't do it if you don't. That's all there is to it. Do not build, do not rebuild, do not build coils, do not vape on coils that have been built without testing. You got to know where you're at with this thing. And that's my take. Take it for what it's worth. So resistance isn't what we're talking about here. We're talking about a style of build. With this wire and on this specific atomizer. You know what battery you have. You know what it can handle and what it doesn't. And if you don't, then you need to back up and slow down just a little bit and read over some material and familiarize yourself with rebuilding. Ohm's law, voltage, battery ratings, you know, having a good device. You need to do all that. So we're skipping ahead and we're just showing a build that I've been enjoying lately. Okay folks, gonna do a quick build video. I don't like to call these tutorials because this is really just how I do things, and pretty much turning on the camera while I do things. But I'm going to be building a dual coil setup on the Raiju atomizer from VHO. If you're not familiar with it, it is like their Helios 4-post design. Very, very efficient, awesome atomizer. Really easy for dual coil builds with the 4-post design. Really excellent atomizer, and really easy to do a video like this on. You know, I can keep everything in camera view most of the time because of this 4-post situation we got going on. Like I said, dual coils, and the guy who actually suggested this build to me his name is Chadster, and he puts out this stuff. Hot wires, resistance wire, and basically kind of give you a heads up what we're going to be doing. And you know, not that this is reinventing the wheel or anything, but we're going to be doing one coil, and whereas maybe traditionally we would go, you know, wrap the coil and the 2 leads, one of them would go here to this post and the other lead would go to this post. What we're going to be doing is skipping this post and going to the next one, right? So coil lead here and here on this side, and then on the other side, this outer post, skip one, and that one, right? That might not make a lot of sense just talking about it, so we're just going to do it. Going to be building with 26 gauge beast mode wires from Hot Wires, like I mentioned. So I've got a couple strands of that already cut and ready, and that's about it. I don't have an exact measurement, but I wanted to show you. This is a tool that I use a lot. Husky makes a little pick set. It's pretty much just an ice pick, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap my resistance wire. I'm going to make my coil right here. You know, I'm not sure the diameter of that in millimeters, so what I would like for people to take away from this build is maybe just a different idea, different way to build. I'm not going to suggest any certain resistance for you, because you're the one who knows the limits of your battery and your vaping style and your safety measures that you exercise. So I'm just going to be I'm going to shoot for a 0.6 ohm build, dual coils, just like we talked about. Alright, I'll be right back. Alright, so here's just a quick little view of how I get started wrapping around something like this pick that I use, or a screwdriver, anything like that. Basically, with my thumb, I will hold one end of the wire there to hold it secure, and then I just pull tight, push it against that base down there. That's it. And with this thumb holding that end of the wire, you're able to keep your coil nice and tight, So I'll actually sometimes go a couple spins there, and then I'll come back and adjust. All right, push everything down. I know it's not the best close-up shot, but it's going to give you the idea of what we're going for here. So if you're building along, this is the point we're at. We're just going to throw, I don't know, probably 8 wraps on here. 6. So the point is, when I build, I like to keep things tight and kind of neat looking, but it doesn't have to be beautiful while you're going. Just keep it as even as you can. Don't get too stressed out about it. And you can always work it a little bit, tighten it up. And there's a specific way that I do things that will help clean this coil up a little bit before we go to install it. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I kind of shape it a little bit with my fingers, but basically, I've got my rough draft here. And I'll tell you one thing. These little puppies changed my life. I had some cheap wire cutters that I used before this, but man, since I've gotten these, it's just so much nicer. These were about $5 at Walmart in the tool section. Very sharp, and really reach down into atomizers, and really good little tool. So basically, like I said, what I'd call that is, that's my rough draft of one coil. Something like this. Again, you will do a different number of wraps to achieve the resistance you like. That's how I do it. Sorry folks, I had to break away for 1 second. So now, the way I do this now, when I get this quote-unquote rough draft coil here, so I get some needle nose pliers, and again, You might have different styles, different ways of doing things. I get some needle nose, and I like to compress that coil, okay, where everything's touching. I'm right-handed and not real good with my left hand, so I have to get it set in there, switch hands, and then I torch it. I'm gonna have to watch it, make sure I don't burn the table here. But I torch that coil while I'm holding it with the needle nose pliers there. Heat it up good and red. Get all those coils nice and warmed up, used to being around each other. Everybody's having fun. Keep in mind, this is a flame, and that is hot metal. And if I grabbed that right now, I would burn my finger. Please always be safe. So I try to hold it there for a minute, let it cool off. Okay? At this point, I can grab the leads without getting burned. But you see, and it's kind of, because of the heat, it's holding its form. I'm perfectly comfortable with that coil right there. So basically, we just got to repeat this process, and we will have both of our coils for this build. You know, I'll be honest with you, I rebuilt that coil, and I'm leaving this in the video for a very specific reason. Test your builds, always. Obviously, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm suggesting a safe practice of always testing your builds. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm not super comfortable always vaping on a 0.3 ohm build. I am far more comfortable at 0.6, 0.5 ohms all day long. With the batteries that I use, I'm perfectly comfortable with that. You do your own thing, but be safe. So I left it in the video. I stripped it back down. Same build, same wire, except for I did 10 wraps. Okay, 10 wraps around the same pick here of the 26 gauge beast mode hot wires, and I think actually it fits for this build style a little better. See? So I'm going to go ahead and install these two coils, and I'm ready to get some wick on this thing and have a vape. In most of my videos I'm vaping the whole time. I've had my hands full. I haven't gotten a chance to do that. Everybody will have their own style, and they might have shorter leads at this point or longer. You know, who knows? Do your own thing. Just find what's comfortable for you. You may be far past this type of build. You might not like duals. You might build single coils or quad coils or parallels, and that's all good. This is a great build for me, for my vaping style. So it's somewhere I like to be, and I think this build will be, with the 10 wraps on each side, will be a lot better for me personally, for my style. Again, just going to install it the same old way. Figure out where I threw my little screwdriver here. Tighten this down while it's while I'm keeping my pick inside of the coil to keep that shape where I want it pretty good, and come back to him in a minute and tweak it a little bit. Get those leads out of the way. Now tighten up this little puppy on the other side. You know, and then come in and clip some of this excess. I'll be honest with you, well, you probably know, I don't do a lot of build videos. I had planned on it, honestly, I enjoy building. I build almost every day. I rebuild one atomizer or another, but it's not something I'm super practiced at doing. I would much rather face the camera and just have a chat about different devices and things of that nature. Okay, now wicking. Whichever build that you have built, whatever resistance that you have built it to, everybody's got their own style, but this is what I do. I have my coils built and installed, ready to go, and I have really gotten into this Japanese cotton recently. At first I thought it was just one of those, it's just the latest fad, it's all hype. But in Las Vegas at the Vape Summit, a buddy of mine handed me a sheet of it, and I really love it. It's unbleached, untreated, very, very fine fibers in there, nice and fluffy. And the form factor, the sheet design, just makes it really easy to work with. In fact, one of my buddies cut this into a lot of strips and just had it right there in his battery case with extra batteries, pulled out a new strip, re-wicked on the fly, and he was good. But basically, think about the diameter of your coils and pretty much just cut a strip. This is the way I do it, at least. I'll just cut a strip down the middle there, and I think that's pretty good. I think I'll be able to pack it in there, and pack it in there is the wrong word. I don't go too crazy tight or too crazy loose. You want to get some good wick material in there in your coils, but you don't want it packed too tight. So actually that's a pretty good idea of how I usually do. Now, I'll be honest, a lot of the times I wear gloves while I do this because I just don't want my oils off of my fingers all over this cotton. But that's kind of overboard. But I will clip those ends off for sure. But we will repeat the process with the other coil. Sometimes tweezers help for this. Needle nose pliers, whatever. That is, that's the norm. That's the usual for me. And I'm going to clip off these kind of rolled up, finger greasy ends of the wick there. No, doesn't have to be perfect. I'll clip that off, and then back to my handy dandy pick. The way I normally do these is I honestly just will tuck the ends of the wick down underneath. There are a million different styles to do this, but the way I do it is I kind of fold it in and just slide it back there underneath the coil. I personally like to leave a good bit of open real estate, if you will. You see, I could pack a lot more cotton in there if I wanted to. That's just not really the style I'm into. I've got enough to provide some good wicking and hold some juice, but nothing overboard. I like to get some good airflow all around those coils if I can. There you go. And that's basically it. I didn't focus a lot on resistance because that's really not something I can tell you. That's something you have to decide, and that's something what you're comfortable with. You know what your batteries can handle. You know if your device is up to par. Or does the button get hot at this resistance? And, does your juice taste bad at this resistance? That's really up to you. I just say you have to test. You have to test your builds. You have to do it. If you're doing it on an old variable voltage device, that's fine. Most likely that's not very accurate, and you are going to wear out the threads on your old device. And most of the times it's far cheaper to buy a ohm meter than it is to replace that MVP or VAMO or even DNA device you might be using to test your resistance. Just test them. Just test them. It doesn't take any extra crazy time. You get a little build station out of it, flip the switch, test it, make sure it's where you're wanting to be, and make sure you're being safe. That's it. Just test it. 10, 15, 20 bucks for an ohm meter, that's fine, man. A lot of people pay a lot more than that for a bottle of juice. So make sure and get a meter and just test your stuff. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. But I tell you what I'll do now is I'm going to take this puppy off of my meter, and I'm going to throw it on a matchy device, and I'm going to juice it up. And we'll flip this camera around and talk a little bit about it and have a vape. Okay, so wasn't real quick, 20-something minute video. I apologize, but just wanted to have something up. That's a style of dual coil build on a 4-post atomizer like the Raiju or the Helios. That's the build I really enjoy. Chadster from Hot Wires kind of showed it to me. I never really thought about skipping a post hole like we did there until he mentioned it, but I enjoy it. Little flexibility, little creativity with your builds. Again, I just want to stress, just test your builds. If you're not sure, if you're trying a new build, say you're trying a new dual coil build, wrap one coil and install it on your atomizer, okay, and test the resistance. And understand that once you add another coil just like it to the other side, the resistance is going to cut clean in half. Okay, so if it's not where you want to be, pull that coil off, rewrap it. If you have enough room with your wire, just add a couple wraps. Be safe. That's really it. These videos are meant to just familiarize people with different type builds. I've got some new features coming to the website that will show some different creative builds. I'm going to try to do more instructional type build videos in the future, but that's just the latest one. That's kind of what I'm vaping on right now. So everybody be safe. If you don't understand some of the stuff in the video, I apologize. I'm not the best at build videos. But slow down if you don't and you're not really familiar with building, and just take the time, enjoy the ride, man. There's a lot of really awesome experiences in vaping when you start rebuilding and you build your first coil and then you build your first dual coil. It's an amazing ride. So slow down, don't be in a hurry, be safe and enjoy it. Y'all have a great weekend.